After a very successful and fun 2020 storm chase trip out west with Sam Mills, we once again decided to make our way out to the plains on May 14th through May 20th to try our hand at storm chasing once again. Last year, Sam and I both lived in the Raleigh area and could easily make our way out west from there. But unfortunately, now Sam Mills lives in Silver Spring, Maryland, and I live down in Wilmington, North Carolina, so it wasn't quite as easy to meet up. We decided on a middle ground in Raleigh, North Carolina, and made up our minds to make our way west from there. But unfortunately, while making his way down from Maryland, Sam had some car issues. So we then had three options. Option 1, we could not go on the trip at all. That was obviously the least appealing of the three options. Option 2, we could take my car out west, but my car wasn't exactly well equipped to go storm chasing. So we decided on option number 3 to rent a car and take it out to the plains to go on our storm chase. We rented the car in Raleigh and made our way west at around 6 p.m., driving all through the night until we got to Oklahoma at around 12 the next day. The outlook from the Storm Prediction Center had a slight risk of severe weather over the western portion of Texas. So we drove out to the Amarillo, Texas area and the Panhandle and waited for storms to fire up. Unfortunately, it took a bit of time for the weather to get going, but at least we had some local livestock to talk to. Finally, after an hour or two of waiting, storms began to be visible well to the west, showing up as a line of storms on radar. Unfortunately, these storms would only turn out to be borderline severe. Even so, they produced some weak mammatus clouds around sunset, as well as some distant lightning. All in all, it wasn't a bad chase day, as we still got to see some cool storms and awesome landscapes. But after being awake for 34 of the last 36 hours, we were very happy to end our evening at a hotel in Amarillo, where the storms began chasing us late that evening. Fortunately for us, the next morning the Storm Prediction Center placed the highest severe weather risk in the Texas Panhandle, meaning we could actually sleep in a bit instead of having to drive a long distance. We eventually hit the road during the late morning, driving south and encountering an entirely different landscape. Once again, the storms took some time to form, but we eventually found one that we were able to admire from a distant hilltop. After watching that storm for a while, we continued our trek east, but decided against driving through a storm that had confirmed large hail. We ended up stopping on a dirt county road and viewed two severe warned storms across a field. Eventually, the storms we were on began to lose their punch as the sun went down. To make matters worse, a tornado was reported some 70 miles to our west, well too far away for us to get to before dark. So we used what little daylight remained to stare at the sky. Sunset brought an uptick in lightning, which really put on a show on the drive to our hotel. The following morning's SPC outlook promised the most active day of the storm chase trip so far. A moderate level 4 out of 5 risk was placed right where we had spent the night. Unfortunately for us, whose goal is to see a tornado, the moderate risk was mainly due to the potential for softball-sized hail. But the Storm Prediction Center also placed a 10% tornado risk area, so we started our day optimistic about what would unfold. Well, actually, we started our day with a Texas-style waffle. After our breakfast, we drove south to Lubbock, Texas, where we encountered an abandoned parking lot overtaken by dozens of prairie dogs. So we stopped to watch them for a while. But we were looking for storms, not cute animals. So we found a lonely road off the highway and waited for storms to start bubbling up. The heating of the day caused storms to explode quickly, leading to several supercell thunderstorms, one of which we became transfixed on. Eventually, storms really began to fire to our north, and a tornado warning was issued for Lubbock. We quickly sped north to get into position on the tornadic supercell, passing an amazing rainbow along the way. Upon arrival a few miles south of the amazingly sculpted storm, we proceeded to capture it as best we could. It's difficult to tell in the time-lapse video, but the storm did spin up brief funnel clouds. But we unfortunately never saw our elusive tornado. Even so, we continued to follow the storm, which kicked up quite a bit of dust.
And about 98th Street. Heavy rain is pushing downtown.
As the storm pulled away and began to die off, it left behind an amazing display of mammatus clouds and an amazing sunset. The last day of the chase turned out to be the quietest of them all. The Storm Prediction Center placed a slight risk for severe weather across the southeastern portion of Texas, meaning we had a 6-hour drive just to get into position. Upon arrival, a confirmed tornado did touch down within a line of heavy thunderstorms just to our west, but it was too rain-wrapped to see safely. We were so close, we decided to drive through Houston, Texas, where we rewarded our past 4 chase days with some of the best food we've ever had. The last day of our trip was another long drive, going down Interstate 10 through New Orleans, and 15 more hours back to Raleigh, arriving at 4 a.m. the next morning. Although we once again didn't see any tornadoes, our drive around the country in search of amazing meteorological phenomena was still a blast. In all, we drove 4,480 miles, went through 10 states, and spent an estimated 60 hours or more in the car. And it was completely worth it. Here's a quick look back at the storm reports for each day of our chase trip.